Welcome back to the AGS tutorial. In this video I'm going to be talking about how to create objects in your rooms, and then that will lead us into another subject, which is on inventory objects. If you remember in Sammy's Quest, the main hall had several things that were in addition to this main hall that's displayed here. It had a rug on the floor, it had a closed door, a closed closet door, as well as an open closet door, a rag hanging on the hook. Toward the end of the game, you had a rope that was draped from the hook over to the trap door, which was open, and it draped sort of into the trap door down into the dungeon. And in addition to that, you actually had an open trap door. All of these things were objects in this room. They were all things that were actually present in the editor, but were turned off at the beginning of the game, or turned on or off depending on what the object was at the beginning of the game, and then they were toggled from being on to off throughout the game when the user did certain actions. So we're going to demonstrate that in this video. The first thing that I want to do is just as an example. If you remember, there were two objects in the closet here. There was a lantern about right here, and there was a ladder in the closet as well. So I'm going to put the lantern object back in the closet. Well, the way that you would do that is once you have the room editor open. First of all, what you have to do is up at the top it says show this room's nothing. Well, I'm going to change that to objects. So I click on it and change it to objects. And now you find approximately where you want the object to be inserted, and you right click. And then you're given an option that says new object here. So I click on that, and by default I'm given this blue cup. And the blue cup is the logo for AGS Edit, the AGS editor. So that's the default image that it gives you for all objects that you create. Well, obviously we want to change that image, and the way that we do that is we just select the object, and then we go to the object's properties, which is on the bottom right corner, and we select the image. Now here you can either click the ellipsis button to browse and select your sprite graphic that represents that object, or I just happen to know the number is 65. And so I can just type in the number there and hit enter, and that will select object number, sprite number 65 for that object. The next thing we want to do is scroll down to the name property, and I'm going to change the name of this object to lantern because that's what the object is, and I'm also going to change the description of the object also to lantern. Now I'm going to go back to the actual room, and I'm going to drag the object because it wasn't exactly where we wanted, so I'm going to drag the object to about where we want the object to be in the room, and there you have it. So now you have an object in the room. Now we need to have the object respond to the user interactions. Should be old hat by now. We go down to the properties window in the bottom right corner, and we select the events tab. And now there's several events. Actually, these are the same events that were present in the regions with two exceptions. In the regions, in the hotspots events, we had all of the events that were listed here: any click on object, interact with object, look at object, pick up object, talk to object, use inventory on object, user mode 1 and user mode 2. But we also had stand on and mouse hover, or mouse hovers over the region. Well, we don't have the stand on and the mouse hovers for the objects. So we do have each one of the individual mouse click options. So what we want to do is let's have, when Sammy looks at the object, let's have him say something like, there's a lantern in the closet. So we click on look at object, we click on the ellipsis next to it, and that will create a function back in our room script that will create a function that says lantern look. Well, here we want to say, just like we did before, we want to say see Sammy dot say. And then we want him to say something like, there appears to be a lantern in the closet. Now we won't bother to have Sammy walk over to the lantern to say that. You may or may not choose to do that when you look at an object. But in this case we don't need to do that. So I'm just going to have him say from wherever he happens to be in the room, when you click on the eyeball icon on the lantern, he'll just say there appears to be a lantern in the closet from that position. So I'm not going to bother to test that right now because we've seen that particular command in action. But what I do want to do now is let's create an inventory object so that the player can click on the interact mode on the lantern and actually walk over and pick up the object and have that lantern be added to the user's inventory. To do that, we want to create, first of all, we want to create an inventory item that represents the lantern. Well, that's up in the project tree. You have all of your inventory items. So I'm going to go up to the inventory items in the project tree, double click on that, and because we selected the default game, we actually have two inventory items pre-built for us that were built in the default game. We have the key and the poster, and these are prefaced with an I, for a lowercase I standing for inventory. But we want to create a new one, so I'm going to right click on inventory items and say new inventory item, and that will give us a new inventory item. Now down in the properties window for that inventory item that we just created, the description is going to be lantern. The image number is 66, so we're going to change the image number to 66. Now the hotspot X and Y, the hotspot on an inventory object is the point on the object at which the actual mouse cursor action takes place. You can manually specify an X and a Y location by typing in the values. The easiest way to design the hotspot is to go back over to your main view. The easiest way to select the cursor hotspot is just to click on the image. We want the hotspot to be maybe right here in the corner. So we'll just click on it, and the little crosshairs appears there, and that's going to be the hotspot for that object. So we go back over to the properties window, and we see that that's at position 11, 1. The name is again the script name that we set for C Sammy, for example, for Sammy's character. We want this to be I lantern. And then we have this player starts with item. Now you may want your game, you may want the player to start with certain items already in their inventory. If you do, you change this to a true value. But we don't want the player to start with this item. We want the player to have to find this item and go get it himself. So we keep this as the default false value. So that's really all we have to do. Now we have an inventory item. So I'm going to go back to the room, to the main hall. I'm going to select the lantern object here, and I'm going to go to the events of the lantern. And now I want, when the player interacts with the object, I want them to be able to pick up the lantern, and I want that inventory item that we just created to be added to the user's inventory. So I'm going to click on the ellipses next to interact object. That creates a new function for us. And now I actually do want Sammy to walk over to that spot. So let me go back to the room, find the spot that I want Sammy to walk to, about maybe right here, which is X256, Y109. Go back to the room script. So I want C Sammy dot walk 256, 109, I want it to block again like we did before. I want Sammy to obey the walkable areas. And now I want Sammy to pick up the item. So we do that by saying C Sammy dot add inventory. There's an add inventory function. When we open the parentheses, we see that the first thing that it wants is an inventory item. Well, the item that we want him to add is the I lantern. So that's all we need to do. So now the inventory is going to be added to Sammy. Let's see how that works. So I'm going to go up here and click Run. So we did two things. We did a look and an interact event with this object. Well, first of all, we see that the object is in the room, so that's good. But if we click on Look, he should say, and he does, there appears to be a lantern in the closet. Well, now let's see if he walks over to it and picks it up when we click on Interact. So we click Interact. Now he's walking over to it. Okay, he stopped and something happened, but you'll notice that the object is still there. Well, let's see what's in his inventory. If we go up to the top of the screen, click on his inventory, aha, we see that the lantern is actually in his inventory, so we were successful in that respect. But we didn't delete the object. We didn't remove the object from the screen once we did that. So let's do that real quick. Once we add the inventory to the Sammy, then we want to say lantern dot visible equals false. So that sets the visible property. Basically, it's saying turn this object invisible. In effect, turning off the object. When the object is invisible, the user can't interact with the object, nor can the player see the object. So that in effect turns off the object. So let's try that out one more time. We click on interact with the object. Now Sammy walks up to the object, and now you'll notice that the object is gone and we have the object in the inventory. So we see that we were able to successfully get Sammy to walk over to the object, pick it up, and add it to his inventory. So that's what I wanted to cover in this video. Thanks for watching, guys.